On this UI from Behance that we found on Behance. And again, I just want to give credit at the beginning of every video. It's from Anastasia M and Sergey N. If you've been following along, you'll already know that. But yeah, so last time we built this sort of widget here with the profile and a functional edit button, and this is what it looks like so far. One mistake I yeah, okay, I can't even talk. I can't even speak. One mistake I did make is that, can I show all children? Yes, of you. Okay, one mistake I did make is that we kept Lato because I didn't want to import an Oxygen font, and it happens to be a Google font, and that's the one that they were using. So I wanted to take this time to sort of discuss why these are all, I guess you could say, baked in styles. They're individual, and every time the app loads, these styles will load for every single element, which is heavy. And the reason I do it is because if I ever want to copy and paste this, I'll grab it and I'll be able to transfer it without any issues. But if I copy and paste between apps and I don't have a style that's actually one of these styles in my style sheet, it will not copy over. So I just wanted to make that clear. And the unfortunate thing is that now I have to go and put Oxygen in every single one of these, whereas if I had styles, I could just go here and say, okay, what was it? Standard text or body text? And I would just change it once and it would change for everything. So depending on what kind of a developer you are you building templates? Do you have possibly multiple clients or multiple projects? You may want to bake in your styles the way that I'm doing it right here. Otherwise, you may want to immediately put your styles in and then be able to change them directly from the style thing. What I like to do is at the very end, I'll change all my styles once I know that I have a widget that functions. I'll take the time to do it, and then for each app, right? Because they'll always change. I don't usually use the same style across apps. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And today we're going to be looking at, let's see here. This here, okay, I did look at this just before starting the stream, and I noticed that because I was looking at margins, here we have a 20/20 on ours. I assume that's what they used, but here it looks like we have a 30/30 margin, and 30 and 30, and it looks like maybe 30 or 35 down here, and that is just not going to work for us because, and let me just, I forgot to set up my scene, so just give me one moment while I do that. Scene 2 will be this. Yeah. All right. This is in another program. It's called Inkscape, and I hope this works. If I take this and I move it over exactly aligned, because what we're going to eventually have is this snapping down on mobile. The problem that we have here is that this 30/30 having 20/20 on the left is going to throw off our design if we put this here, right? Because bio is no longer going to be aligned to picture summary, and if we allow things to expand, well, it's just not going to look so good. So we're going to keep using 20/20/20/20, and I'm going to try to calculate immediately what kind of heights I need based on this text here. So we're going to use, for picture summary, we're going to use one of these. Fastball velocity, we're going to use regular text, and this we're going to use regular text as well. And then we're going to have a little bar, and I have to assume the number of pixels. So let me switch back to my other scene here. Yes, okay. And now I should be able to go directly into here and calculate some heights. So for our regular things with a 10 pixel margin on the bottom, we're going to assume we're going to have some text, and then a 10 pixel margin, we're going to have a height of 33. Then we need to add the line. So I think with a height of 38 or 40, we should be able to have this block 40, and then we need some, or 30, yeah, maybe 38. And that might even be a little bit too big. So we'll test it out first. But in my last video, I noticed that I was spending a lot of time realigning things after I'd built them. And this time I'd like to try to just do the square in my head first. And that's what I'm currently doing. So we already have the square. Let's go take a look at the size right now. Looks like a 300 by, and we're going to keep it square, so 300 by 300. We're going to delete this purple thing for now. We're going to put it back in if we need it later. This is going to be our title, so let me just go and grab an example of a title and throw it in there. And then we're going to put an x of 30, y of 30, which I almost did perfectly. Unfortunately didn't. And this is called, it's called picture summary. Let's go ahead and write that out. See, this is like I could change this to oxygen, which I'm going to go do right now. And that's what I meant at the beginning of this video. Now, if I change this to oxygen, well then all of the actual titles that I've been using this for will change to oxygen. This is not supposed to be education. Did we make a mistake? Oh, it's bio. Yeah, I think we just forgot to change this to bio. And then we can bring it in and we could bring in our line a little bit. Perfect. I also noticed that when I don't speak loud, unfortunately my microphone does weird things, and so I got to make sure I don't mumble today. Now let's go ahead and put in some holder groups and some margins. So these are our holder groups. We're going to make sure that they're width of, I think it's 240 if it's 30 by 30. No, it's 230, I think. Is that correct? No. It definitely was 240. Nailed it. Okay, we could center it horizontally, and that's 30 by 30 on both sides, and our height is 38. And then we need our margins, and we need 3 of these elements, I believe. So let's give them margins of 25. Yeah, 25 sounds good. Here we have 30, so it's a little bit of extra distance, and then in our hierarchy here, we should actually put 30 again. So if this one's height, what are we doing for height here? 25. So we need to go to, is it 90? Did I nail it? No, it's not. Unfortunate that I can't maths that quick. And then 20s, I think 20s will be good in between. We're going to check that out again after, but and then a 30 on the bottom. Let me just go make sure that there are 3. Yeah, there are 3. Okay. And another reason why I'm enjoying doing these live streams rather than my traditional videos is that they take a lot less time for me to make, because I just basically talk. And they seem to be popular. Okay, so our height of 28 is not actually going to work when we have our, like, even if we give it a line height of 1, like a line spacing of 1. Yeah, actually that should work. Okay, so we were doing, here we're doing oxygen. It's called body mine. Edit style, body mine, what are you? You're oxygen 16. And let's just go make sure that's consistent with what they have here. In their typography guide, they have oxygen 16 for body. Yeah, they do have this color. I like when I use my, I have a color picker called Color Cop. When I use my color picker, this comes out as, let me just make sure, it comes out as, I'm just trying to find the darkest part, because this is a raster. It comes out as 30 something. Not 40, 41, 4. So F5A, which I think we do have in our palette. Let's go check it out in our settings general. All the way at the bottom, you have your palette, 4145A. Let's go ahead and apply it to the body style and see what happens. Yeah, it's pretty accurate. It's darker. So we're just gonna go ahead and leave that there. We're also going to apply the style to this particular piece of biography. Okay, so let's continue down here and let's apply the style body mine. And now we have, what does it say? It says fastball velocity, spin rate, and pitch movement, but this is definitely not the right color. So fastball velocity. How wide does this need to be? Okay, this one will be aligned left, and then there will be the text for the actual value, which was put at 93.6 here. I don't know how fast a fastball can go, but what you want to do when you're building out these UIs is actually put in the highest possible value to make sure that it fits, and then a really low value to make sure that it still looks good. So we're going to go with 193, and I don't think it'll go any faster than that. We're going to remove this style. We're going to line it right, and then we're going to stick in A. Let's actually, I'll show you a plugin. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I don't feel like rebuilding everything in SVG right now, so we're going to go progress bar. I've never actually used this one. I've never even noticed it was there. I used to use this one back in the day, and then I just decided to build out my own. But we're going to use this one today because it's by Bubble, and we're doing it as vanilla Bubble as possible. I might play around with the jQuery one to see how fast it is. Where is the progress bar? Guys, right here. So we could put that in. Now in our, oh no, don't do me like that. There's apparently text. I don't want any text. We'll put it at 6 and we'll remove text color just so that it doesn't spread because I don't know if the text actually spreads. And the border style, the border color, it's yellow and gray on the back. Since we don't have it in our design guidelines, I'll just grab my color cop tool. Where are you? I don't think you guys can see. Actually, I'm quite certain you guys can't see me use my color cop tool because I'm only giving you the scene. But it's FFCC07, which I copied to my clipboard. And I'll just paste it in here. Oh, this is the border color. My bad. This is the progress bar color. Okay. And background style is not FF. It's a very light gray, maybe even lighter. Okay, and then border color, we're gonna go with none. And can we round some corners at a 5? Yeah. And then can we give it a height that makes sense? 10. No. 5. Yes. And what's my margin here? It's 6, but there's a little bit of margin. It's on line height of 1. If I go remove style, you kept the 1.4. We're going to just align this to the top by changing the line height to 1. And now our 38 all of a sudden looks good at 35. Cool. All right, now that we have that, we have to figure out what color of text they're using because it's definitely not their 5A whatever for here. So I'm going to grab my color cop again, and I'm just going to go ahead and select the darkest part of this T where it crosses. And it looks like 8, 7 something. So I'm going to paste that in here. And yeah, that seems to be the color that they're using. I'd like to mix it a little bit more gray, make it a little bit darker. That's what I would do. And I would put this here because that looks way too blue for my eyes. But anyways, so that's 1. And then we're going to give it its margin, 25. So 145. And again, same thing, 205. Okay, let's go take a look at what it looks like, and then we can plug in the other values. The percentages you would get for, yeah, that looks about right. I mean, picture summary, it's big, and then fastball velocity, blah, blah, blah. It's the wrong font, though. Maybe they lied about the font that they used. There's some oxygen bold. Yeah, that's what I have. And it still doesn't look right. Is that what I have? Oxygen. Oxygen regular and bolded and oxygen bold is not the same thing. They're actual font weights that are made by the foundry to look a specific way. The foundry or the designer, but I assume it's the foundry in this situation. I'm just trying to compare the two here. Well, we'll leave it like that. It's not a huge deal, and I think that we should move on, so we're going to. In terms of percentages, you would pull them from the you would pull them from the database. And I did promise in the last video that we would do that. I'm going to try to keep this stream a little bit shorter. Like so far, we're at 14 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to try to keep this a little bit shorter, and I'm just going to show you how I pull data from the database using a structure that I use. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not saying it's even something that you should use if you don't have a lot of data. Just stick it in your users. But I'm going to show you why, and I'm going to tell you why I do that. So I basically have users, and then I always have something called user file. If I have other things, usually I'll divide them by 2 types of data. One is that only the user should be able to see, only the user or an administrator, because then I'll set up private rules for that. And the other type is that all users can see about this user. So that's usually my user file, and that's all of these pieces of information like the age, height, weight, throws, bats, and stuff for Jason here should be visible by all of the users, right? Because when you're looking at this page, you're looking at a summary of him, right? So because it's visible by all the users, also his fastball velocity and spin rate and pitch movement, we would go ahead and plug that into his user file. And then in his user file, we would connect it to the user, and then we wouldn't connect the user to the user file. And the reason I do that is because let's say I load, I always have this void, right? This void I always put in just so I can load repeating groups. Let's create a new user thing called void. And the thing will be a void list of voids create. And just for now, I'm going to show you, how am I going to show you? Let's go ahead and make a new entry for a user. The email will be ASDF. Like whoever has this email must get tons of emails. And I'm going to add all of the voids. Are you letting me add the same void 3 times? That's kind of ridiculous, okay. I didn't know that I could do that. Let's try to add a couple of them. And the point is when I load this user, okay, let's go back into our app. Let's create this. Now this user's tied to a bunch of data basically from another side. They're called voids. And let's say I load this user into this group, and I want to load his voids in here. Then I need that list of voids. But let's say I have a list of, like a messaging list, and I'm loading a whole bunch of users. Basically, Bubble will always pull in every single void that's tied to every single user when they do a search for user, and that gets heavy. So what I like to do is I like to basically split the information the way that I need it. And now we're going to actually create a user file for Jason here, and that'll be it for today, I think, because I have a whole bunch of stuff to do on the side. So let's go to user file and let's add at least a picture. Okay, and that's gonna be an image. And let's add a name first. And that's gonna be text. And let's add a name last. And that's gonna be text. And that's all I'm gonna do right now. And I think, like, you guys don't need to see this, I assume, and it's just gonna make the live stream enormously long, but I'm going to, before the next stream, create his whole database with everything that's in it. And basically what I wanna do is load a user here, do a search for user whose name, right, I can't look for a user. Do a search for user, email equals asdf@gmail.com. So that'll be Jason. And first item. Okay, so there's various ways to load the data in. You could do it from your URLs by passing query parameters. You could do it from your page type. Let's say this page is only users, then you would set it to user and you would send that data over from another page or whatever. But right now, we're only doing this particular user. And then when we load it, the user's going in here. Well, when we load it, we want the user file to load in this group here. So instead of user, we're going to go user file, and we're going to do a search for user file whose user is current user. Now, what we've done is we've searched for users, but the search is going to be much faster because there's not a lot of data contained in users. Sorry, sirens. How do I mute my mic? Yeah, I'm really sorry, guys. That's the best I could do in this situation, and there's no way I'm shutting my windows. It's way too hot today. So, user, search for users, first item, and then we're going to load his actual user file that's connected to this user first item. So, the reason I do this, again, just to recap, is because when I'm searching for users, I don't want to search through a ton of information, and I don't want to draw a ton of information in. But since I only need to display one user file, I can get this user, and then I can check all of my user files against this user. And I can also block with privacy rules the amount of users that are allowed to be accessed. Like, let's say I'm only looking for sports guys. Well, then I could change that in the search and just basically do a lot of optimization. So that's why I split those. Okay, so right now in user file, we have this data, let's go ahead and create a user file that's linked to ASDF, and then let's show his stuff. Jason, whatever. Statham. I mistyped that, it doesn't matter. Let's upload a picture. This is interesting. I wonder if you guys can see my screen on the upload. Jason is going to look like a pile of rocks. And this is just to show you that I've actually changed it from Jason's face that we currently have. It's going to take a while to upload. And we could talk about, okay, the user is going to be asdf@gmail.com, and let's create that. We have our user file now, and we have our user. So we can now look for that user and then load his user file, and it should work. And the way we're going to find out if it works is we're going to add his image as a dynamic one. Here's his picture. Here's his name. And here's his other name. Okay, let's see if that makes sense. Okay, it didn't, and I lost access to my debugger, so let's close this. Let's open up the preview, and hopefully it comes back. Bubble, please. No? Okay. That's fine. That's quite all right. It didn't find a user file for some reason. I don't know if it didn't find a user, so let's just go ahead and debug this without the debugger, because sometimes Bubble likes to just turn off my debugger. It's really annoying. But we'll just load his email in here, and we'll press preview again. See what happens. Okay, it loaded the user. It did not find the user file. Why not? Search for user files. Who's current user. We're looking for parent group's user, and that was my mistake there. 10 points for whoever caught it while they were watching. There you go. There's his information, and now we can load literally any user's information into our little bio, into our little profile widget. And we could do the same thing for here. And a really nice way to link it is that you can actually cross group in Bubble. So let's grab this group. Let's say this is also a user file. And instead of doing a search for again, we could just say, look, we already have it in group user file. We're going to call this group. We're going to call this grhld user file. And then HLD user file will already have run a search. So instead of running a search again, we're just going to pull it from there. There you go. And then we should be able to load, well, you're not going to see anything, but basically let's just put his, let's just change this to his name. When parent group's user file is not empty, then we're going to make the text be his name. Name first, name last. Okay, and you can do all sorts of cool stuff like that. Like right now he's a pitcher, right? But he could be something else. Let's say he's not a pitcher, and this says pitcher profile. That's kind of dumb. Let's say he's a catcher. Maybe you have different data for catchers, and you want to put in, different data. Then you can just load this and say if he's a pitcher, then display pitcher profile. If he's a catcher, then display catcher profile, etc. Okay, and you can also auto bind. Yeah, maybe we'll do that with the last few minutes that we have. With the last few minutes that we have, I'm just going to get into privacy rules, but not in too much depth. Basically, you could say in the edit mode, we're going to put in an input, and we're just going to auto bind it to the name. Let's go ahead and grab this input, put it here, and let's say this input is going to change our user file's name. So here, I don't know why I'm messing about with this. This is supposed to be 260, I think. Center horizontally. I'm doing a lot of thinking on the side here, but let's go ahead and auto bind this to the user file. Okay, we're going to pull from group hold user file just so it's consistent. And then we're going to say if is yes. Last time we did this, but we want to make sure that the person editing this has access. Okay, so we're going to go something like and parent groups. This shouldn't be a user, it should be a user file. Oh, parent group's user. And this group's user file, user is current user. Okay, this is visible. Otherwise, we're going to say you shouldn't be here. And it's not enormously important to add this if you add it to the edit button, but if you want to make sure it's bulletproof, you can still do that. You can still grab a group and say, you're not current user. You don't have access to this. Let's make it invisible on page load. Let's go ahead and collapse it. Whoops, this one is visible on page load. I did the wrong element. Here's the group. Collapse this element's height when hidden, not visible on page load. And basically, we're just going to use this group to announce that, hey, you shouldn't be editing this if it's not current user. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab this conditional and paste it in here. And this group, whoops, I first have to say that this is indeed a user file, and it is gr hold user files user file. I hope that you guys get this. If you don't, leave a comment. I actually don't have my comments open. Oops. But I do notice that there are some people watching. Crazy. Crazy, right? Let's go ahead and see. People watching. Crazy. First, conspiracy, hey. Cool, you're the first person to ever comment on my video. Thanks, man. Okay, let's continue. Here, we're going to say, we copied this condition in. We just had to make sure that our user file was correctly set up. And now we can say when it's edit, yes, and this group's user file, user isn't current user, is not current user. You'll notice that if I run it right now, I'm not the correct user. So basically what it should show when I click edit is you don't have access to this. Now, if I run it as JSON, if I go to my data tab, all users, and I run it as JSON, I should be able to have access to the edit tab. Okay, so that's just a little beside a little bit of data security that you should be setting up on all your websites, but on all your apps, sorry. But now we have access to the edit, and we'll just do that as a last thing. So in the privacy, we're going to go to user files, and we're going to go define a new role, and we're going to go this user. And you can have one for a super user or whatever. But basically, we say when this user files user is current user, we're going to say that we're allowed to change things because everybody else is not allowed to change things, only to see it. Okay? But if we want to change things and use auto binding, we can go ahead and say if this user is current user, then we can change the name and the picture, and there you go. So when we go back to our design tab, we should be able to do this appearance, and we should be able to say allow auto binding. Okay, so let's go enable auto binding, and let's modify the first name. Okay, and when we do enable auto binding, you'll see that it automatically load the first name into here, and it'll allow us to change it automatically when we click on this. See, Jason? Well, we have a little bit of a mistake, and my name is Jason, and I'll change it. And then when I press X, there you go, Jason. Okay, so you can do your entire edit thing like this. I won't go into any more detail in this structure because I didn't really want to do a lot about backend. I wanted to do mostly about design and front end and aligning things. But right now, I mean, we're getting somewhere. We have a little edit thing. You're able to set this up now. I wouldn't make my inputs look like this. I might do a little bit about inputs in the next video. And we have our things, our fastball velocity widgets, at least, that we can set up now by just going in here, putting a data element in our user file, and then loading that particular data element here, and then loading it as a percentage in our progress bar. And it looks almost exactly like this, almost. There's some sizing problems, I think. Yeah. Can I fix that right now? It's because they're if I remove this style, heading 2 is supposed to be 18, but in their design, this is definitely, I want to say definitely not 18, but it might be. Okay, so anyways, we're going to fix that up in the next one, and we're going to build out this little widget that allows you to see different events that are coming up, and that slides when you click on this little button here. Okay, so thanks a lot for tuning in. I've noticed that doing these actually gets a lot of watch time on YouTube. a lot fewer views, but a lot more watch time. So I think that you guys are actually watching this and are interested in it. And, I mean, if you are, leave a comment and let me know what's missing, what you guys want to learn about. And we're going to focus on this. And I've actually started preparing the next tutorial where we're going to be copying the Rolex website. So yeah, stay tuned. And we're gonna continue doing this at least every Sunday and hopefully once extra every week. So we should be done this by, I don't know, June. See you guys later.